Bogotá, eres tú.
But I'm very happy to be here. I want to thank Soho House, Cities Without Houses. And like I said, today I'll be talking about the future consumer 2027. I'll be presenting 4 consumer personas that will be important for the next year. We'll talk about how they feel, how they behave, and everything that you need to know as a business or as a brand to connect with this consumer. Before I begin, I just wanted to introduce WGSN. So for those of you who don't know, WGSN is the biggest trend forecaster in the world. We have offices in over 15 countries. We are serving markets in over 30 places. We have a connection with over 40,000 creatives and researchers in different creative industries. Everything that we do at WGSN, every trend that we forecast starts by looking at the macro shifts. So we look at everything from politics to technology to the environment, and we translate that into trends and directions that are actionable for brands. And we always talk about how that will impact consumer behavior, how that will change the lifestyles of consumers, and again, everything that a brand and a business needs to know to connect with this consumer. What are the products that are gonna emerge from this shifting behaviors and these emerging trends? So let's start looking at 2027. I want to introduce the idea that in 2027, we're going to start to find connection amidst this deep polarization that we're in. So we're going to move out of the era of either or and into an era of and. And what that means is that we're going to embrace contradiction. We're going to embrace the opposite feelings. So we're going to feel the need to disconnect at the same time that we're going to be wanting to stay connected. We're going to go from joy into anger in a single moment. And we're going to want to connect with nature and technology at the same time. We're going to feel sadness and joy, like I said. And the reason that I'm saying that is because when I talk to you guys about the actual 4 consumer personas, you might think, oh, but these seem contradictory or they seem opposite. But they all are equally important. They're all emerging at the same time. And it's just this feeling that everything is happening all at once. It's going to become increasingly important. So these are the 4 groups that I'm going to talk to you guys about over the next 30 or 40 minutes. I'm going to go over how they feel, how they behave, what are the changes in behavior, and also the strategies that business and brands need to know to connect with these consumers. So starting with the privacy keepers. The privacy keepers are fighting what we call the always-on culture. So this culture of being constantly connected, they're rejecting that, and they're seeking a more control. They crave the ability to control how they stay connected, to what they stay connected. They have a very deep priority of protecting their data. As the name says, we have here privacy keepers. So the privacy for them is a form of power. It's a form of rebellion even. So they are consumers that worry a lot about their safety online, and this is something very important to know, even in our region. So we have stats like 32% of Latin Americans worry about their personal or financial data and how it's used online. And now this is going to become increasingly important as AI enters our day-to-day activities and our day-to-day lives. We know that we're inputting a lot of data into these tools, but we don't really have much control on how these tools are using our data. So privacy is going to become increasingly important for this cohort. So we're also going to talk here about the rise in brain rot. So I'm sure a lot of you know this term. It's a very in term right now. However, for those of you who don't know, brain rot is the increasing habit of consuming content that is extremely shallow, that is literally taking a toll on our mental sharpness. So this is increasingly important amongst younger consumers. A lot of them are using this as to study. So this video right here, there's a website called PDF to Brain Rot, where consumers can, or people can put in text, long form text, and it will turn it into a brain rot video. So while the goal here is to help, especially help students to learn in a gamified sort of way, it's also contributing to this rising brain rot, and it's also taking a toll in our ability to stay focused and reading a full long text, for instance. However, the privacy keepers, they're fighting this behavior. They want to fight brain rot. So we see the rise in influencers like this one right here, who are creating anti-brain rot strategies. This girl, this TikTok creator, she does anti-brain rot challenges, where she challenges people to stay present in a single activity for a long period of time. So in this particular challenge, she read a book in an entire day, and she documented on TikTok, and she also challenged people to do the same. So the idea is to, like I said, stay present and be able to keep your mind and your brain a little sharper. Another emerging concept that is very important to the privacy keepers is the idea of ping minimalism. And what is this? I've heard some phone ringing. I'm sure a lot of you have gotten a lot of notifications since we started maybe 3 minutes ago. So the privacy keepers, they want to break from that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these are people who want to be completely disconnected or go off the grid. This is not what I'm saying. But they want to reshape their relationship with their phones, and they want to embrace a more quieter online life. So they don't want as many notifications and pings all of the time. We all know how constant it is. Someone or something always needs our attention online all of the time. So they want to change that. They want to have, like I said, a quieter digital life. And we're also seeing an emerging behavior of going from oversharing into gatekeeping. And that's true especially online. So in the era of social media, we've grown used to sharing everything that we do. But we see a rise in consumers who want to be more authentic to their true selves and less performative. So they don't feel the need to share everything they do. In fact, they're looking to protect that, which is very much in line with the privacy keeper cohort. So these people, they want to look at what's happening online maybe, but they don't want to share. We have numbers like 80% of people look at TikTok every single day, but only 16% of people post in the same frequency. So that shows how people, again, they want to stay connected, but they don't necessarily want to share. And this is happening in all spheres of behavior. So we see trends on TikTok, for instance, called gatekeeping my perfume. We see the rise in anti-tourism across several cities in the world. The idea is that people want to protect the things that they love. They don't want everyone to know about it. And this is very much in line with the privacy keepers. So this brings us to our first strategy for this cohort. Like I said, for every consumer group, I'm going to talk about 3 strategies to connect with them. The first one is to invest in digital decluttering. I've already said this. This consumer doesn't go fully disconnected. They know the importance of being online. They will still stay connected. But if brands are able to help them have a quieter digital life, or brands that understand that they want to come to the brands and not necessarily be reached or have notifications and content being pushed to them all of the time, will win this with these consumers. And brands that help them fight brain rot too. So brands that reshape their relationships with online content and with their phones will be really great for this consumer. So we have a couple of examples of this. The first is this brand called Stope. They're a Belgian company, and they're fully dedicated to this connection. So they created a box where you can put your phone inside of it, and it not only allows you not to have your phone for a little bit, but it also doesn't have any connection for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 5G, so you're fully disconnected for as long as you want. It fits up to 5 phones, so it has this idea of collective as well. So if you have a moment with your friends, you can all put your phones in there. Not only you have a quiet moment, but you won't be reachable, which is important for this consumer as well, because I'm talking about privacy. So there won't be any signal being pushed to their phones in that period of time. Another example, a way simpler one, and from the fashion world, is the real Substacks. So Substack in itself can be seen as people wanting to fight brain rot. So people wanted the long form content that Substacks provide. And the Real, it's a great example of a brand that is doing that very well. So instead of pushing notifications and email marketing to their consumers, They have a Substack, and I particularly love this example that we have here, how to win at the real, because it brings the consumer to them instead of sending an email marketing that it's likely based on the data that they have gathered from their users on their websites. And here it literally teaches the person how to use Substack in their best way possible for them. Moving on to the second strategy, we have implement safety measures. So safety, and especially online safety, is increasingly important for these consumers. They are worried about their safety online. So brands that can help them stay a little bit safer online or have a lot of transparency will win with these consumers. So this is an example from the government. Of course, the government has a role in this. So in Brazil, the government is implementing a infinite scroll ban for children. So anyone who's not who's a minor now won't have infinite scrolling, so the endless scrolling on their social media apps. Not only that, the ban also forbids autoplay from videos. It forbids notifications that cause anxiety, like your friend is waiting for you. It also forbids unpredictable, rewarding behavior. And the idea here is that it not only reduces anxiety for kids, but it also reduces the chance of them becoming addicted to their phones with something they can't really control. So this is very new. This is just being implemented there. And it's important not only for brands to keep that in mind, especially brands that are targeting younger consumers, but brands that can align with this value, like I said, will win with this consumer. Another example from Brazil, O Boticário is a beauty brand, and they have created this bot called Her, forgive me. Her is a bot that you can install, you can activate in your Twitter or your X account, and will alert especially women when an image has been manipulated by Grok, which is Twitter's or X AI machine, and we know that Grok doesn't have a lot of protection, so this bot tries to do that. It not only helps women by alerting them, listen, your image is being manipulated online, but it also brings awareness to the rise in digital crime against women on the internet. And lastly, our last strategy for this cohort is to bring back exclusivity. So I talked about the rise in gatekeeping, and this is very much relates to that. Obviously, when we talk about exclusivity, we immediately think of the luxury market. And of course, this is really important for the luxury market. But what is important to understand here is that we're not only talking about luxury from a price tag or exclusivity from the price point of a product. Obviously, that also can play a part. But we're talking about how difficult and how exclusive it is to belong in the world of the brand. This is something that the luxury market does very well. Just look at the role, just look at Hermès and how successful they continue to be. But like I said, we're seeing this across different levels of the market now, with people wanting to belong in the world of a brand. And more than that, they want to know about something that not necessarily everyone knows about. So we have two examples from the fashion world here. The first is Mile. They are an e-commerce, but they are an invitation-only e-commerce. So you can be invited or you can apply. And if you are approved, then you have access to 3 different tiers that you can buy and you can purchase. They have different discounts. They have different collections that they provide for people, things that are hard to access as well. Even their Instagram is closed, it's private, so it adds to the allure of exclusivity. And the second example is from Brenda Hashtag. She's an influencer, she's German, and she has a website. She's known for having archival pieces, a bunch of archival from Margiela, Alaya, and the Malemister, a bunch of brands that are a little bit more niche. They are luxury brands, of course. And she has this website called Rethinking, where every week she changes the password. So only super fans of Brenda will have access to this password. They will know what the password is and have access to shopping lists. Sometimes she sells her archive and her pieces on this website as well. So like I said, only people that are in the know, that belong in this very exclusive club, that follow Brenda very closely, will have access to it. Now we move on to our second cohort, which is called the conventionalists. So while the privacy keepers want to reshape their relationships with their phones and they're looking to get less notifications, the conventionalists, they are looking more for disconnection. They want to be immersed in the real life. They want a simpler life as well. They value analog. They value nostalgia. They look at the past with the idea that it was a simpler time. And they especially want to protect their energy. So they're rejecting this fast-paced rhythm that we live in. And something that I didn't say at the beginning of the presentation, but you probably noticed by now, these consumers, they aren't about demographic data, so they're not about generation or even regionality. They're much more about how people behave, what is their lifestyle, or what is the lifestyle that they want to achieve. And this is very clear with this consumer because we have both younger consumers who have looked at their parents' lifestyles or their grandparents' lifestyles, and they think, that doesn't work for me. The world is not like that anymore, and I don't want that. I don't want to work 50 years and have no life. And we also see older consumers, actually. They're tired of living the same rhythm for so long. Now they want to slow down a little bit. They don't want to adapt to an even faster and an even more connected lifestyles. And these are the conventionalists. So I'm sure a lot of you here, or most of you here, know about the concept of ROE, so return on investment. It's a very important concept, of course. It will continue to matter. But now we're going to see the emergence of return on energy. So these consumers, they reject the idea that financial success is the only measurement of success. And instead, they're constantly asking themselves, is this worth my energy? Is it worth my time, my effort? What will I get back from this? Apart maybe from financial gain. I think this is very clear when we talk about Gen Z, but like I said, it's not only true for younger generations, it's true for a bunch of people. We also see the rise in analog creativity. And what we mean by that is that we've been seeing people going back to analog products for a really long time now. Ever since the hipsters in the early 2000s, they were buying vinyls, they wanted analog cameras. All of that is important, of course. But now with the rise in AI, we're going to see analog gain a different meaning. And what I mean by that is that people are going to want what we call proof of human. So proof that something was created by an actual person. They're rejecting AI copy, AI art as well. So they want the idea that something was created by an actual human being. They want to see the process of being created. That's why they value things that are actual physical, or that they can see the process. And this is a great example from Apple. Let's see if the video plays. So what is happening here is the logo of Apple. So if you look at an Apple TV series or a movie, you always see this logo coming in, and it has a very digitalized effect. So in fact, I always looked at this logo and I never thought much of it, but they have recently shared the process of the logo being done, the vignette being created. And as you could see, it was done completely by hand. It was completely manual work. So the final result is very digitalized, but they released this video showing, listen, this was made by humans. Look at all of the process. And this is a form of proof of humanity. We're going to see a lot of people sharing the backstage or the process of something being done. ¿Puedes pasar? Okay, gracias. So obviously people want to disconnect. I talked about this already. This consumer especially want to be disconnected. So we're seeing the rise in phone-free experiences. In the UK, this is especially growing. So we've seen the rise in phone-free club events grow over 500% from 2024 to 2026. Of course, in 2024, there were probably no phone-free events, but now this is something that is becoming increasingly common because, like I said, people are rejecting the idea of performing, of always posting, and they want to live the experience better and with more presence. So this brings us to our first strategy, which is to design phone-free experiences. Whoever works in marketing remembers when we started talking about having an Instagrammable space, right? You had to have a space in your store or whatever it was in your business that people went and they wanted to post about. That will continue to exist. However, what we're seeing now is that the things that generate the most buzz and are most important for consumers are the things that are completely phone-free. This is not for everyone, but for this consumer, it definitely is. It rejects the idea of performing, of going somewhere and posting and just going for the post and for the content that you're going to post online. So we have a bunch of examples of this. Like I said, in the UK, this is increasingly important. So we have Amber, which is a club in Manchester. They are not, they don't forbid phones, so you can have your phone in there. However, they will they'll have a tape on your camera, on the camera of your phone, so you won't be able to take any photos. The idea here is not about exclusivity and making this club secretive. It's about allowing people to stay present and enjoy the night with their friends. So really, instead of posting and creating content the whole night, you listen to the music, you dance. There's a lot of Gen Z consumers who are fearful of looking silly online, so this also removes that factor. And similarly, Harry Styles just announced that his show in Manchester as well, as a coincidence, it's going to be completely phone-free. So you won't be able to take your phone at all. So you actually have to live the concert in the moment without having necessarily to register that moment. Then we have Flipper from Heineken. So this is, I'm just going to let the video play, which is a very cool example of how to do that as well.
Cheers. Working hard, but we never had a breath.
So I love this example because Heineken does beer. That's what they do. However, they created this phone case that literally flips when you say cheers. So the idea is that, no, you're not going to look at your notifications, you're not going to look at your phone now, and you're going to stay present and enjoy with your friends. The second strategy that we have here is to go back to the archives. I talked a little bit about how this consumer looks at the past with a romanticized view. In their mind, the past was a little simpler, things were easier, so they are very nostalgic. Still, I know we've been talking about nostalgia for a really long time, but for them, it still matters. So creating products that will bring consumers back to time will be very important. So we have two examples that are similar here from based on the World Cup. So as the World Cup approaches, we have Adidas. They've been doing the ball for the World Cup since 1970. So now they are releasing this kit with all of the balls that they have done for the World Cup for the past many decades since they started doing the ball for the World Cup. And similarly, we have Guaraná. Guaraná is a drink from Brazil. They have released a special edition for the World Cup where they're celebrating the 5 wins that Brazil has had in the World Cup. So each can is inspired by a different Brazilian jersey for the years that we won. This is a great example because although Guaraná is a very old brand, I always like to talk about how going back to the archive doesn't necessarily have to mean your archive, because sometimes brands that are younger or business that are younger, they tell me, okay, but I don't have an archive, so what do I do? You can still look back, and you can still bring back that sense of past and tap into nostalgia, even though the reference isn't necessarily yours. But of course, if you can ask yourself, what were the products, the campaigns, the marketing thing, anyway, that worked very well for my consumer in the past, and how can I bring that back? And if I don't have any, what are the elements from the past that can connect not only to my brand, but also to my consumer? This is another great example of this. It's from Taco Bell. So to celebrate their 50-year anniversary, they released a decades menu. So they got the best-selling items from Taco Bell across each decade since the 1960s until the 2000s. So it was a special edition menu where they were bringing back a lot of their favorites from the past decades that no longer exist. And that brings us to our third strategy, I believe, which is to embrace the analog. I talked about the importance of an analog creativity. And I think in the past, a lot of brands have regarded this as something that was very niche. It was a very niche consumer who wants to buy a physical book or wants to have a vinyl. That is no longer true. We're seeing that have a direct impact on business revenues. People wanting physical items, wanting to touch things. It is obviously a response to AI, right? Like I talked in the beginning. So we have a ton of examples here. I couldn't bring them all, but this is a very basic one from TikTok. So this creator, she went viral with what she calls analog bags. So each month she creates a surprise analog bags full of analog hobbies or things that allow for analog hobbies. It can be a book, it can be a physical calendar, it can be a diary, whatever it is, every month it varies. And now the hashtag analog bag has over 120 million views on TikTok. So it's something that went viral, it really caught on. And I think it's something that brands could try to do and leverage as well. But not only that, like I said, it's having a direct impact on business revenues. So Barnes & Noble is a very traditional, very big book retailer in the US, and they have created this book talk stand in all of their shops, and they are connecting to what's happening on TikTok. They look at all of the books that are going viral, and they bring that to the physical store. Barnes & Noble announced in 2024 and 2025 that they opened 60 new physical stores in each of the years. So like I said, it's having a direct impact on business revenues. Letterboxd, I don't know if everyone here uses it, but it's an app, it's a platform that you can review and rate movies that you watch. They're great, and they are releasing the Letterboxd video store. Anyone who's over 30 here will find this very ironic because we're coming full circle, because Letterboxd, the video store, it literally lets you rent movies. You don't have to have a subscription or look for movies for a while. They have curated lists based on what you like, and you can choose one movie to rent, you pay for that, and that is it. It's very, very full circle moment. Then we come to our third consumer cohort, which is called the new independents. This is probably the most complex cohort because they are rejecting a lot of the things that we're seeing right now. They're a little bit angrier. They want to fight for, disinformation. They question everything. They are distrusting. They need for brands to earn their trust. They don't blindly trust anyone or anything. And they want more accountability from brands as well. They want to connect with brands that connect with them. So here I've talked a little bit about the concept of proof of human. But for the last consumer that I talked about this, they wanted proof that something was created by a human. This consumer wants proof that people are human or the product that you're showing actually exists. So this image right here, which is a little weird, is an image from a political candidate in the UK who went viral in 2024 because people thought he was AI. People went crazy thinking this person doesn't exist, and he had to actually prove that he was an actual human being. Turns out he was. He just uses a lot of Photoshop in his images. That's why people got confused. But we're seeing this behavior increasingly growing. And these consumers, like I said, they don't believe anything that they see just because they're seeing it. They need it to be proven to them. And this is especially important here in Colombia. So Edelman does a search every year where they talk about, a survey every year where they talk about trust and the level of trust in different countries and generations. Turns out that Colombia is amongst the lowest in the trust index. So 49% is the average percentage that people have in trust in the government, in brands, in media. So having a way to build a connection and trust from Colombian consumers, it's harder, however, even more important. We're also going to see the rise in do-it-yourself living. So these consumers, because they're so distrusting, oftentimes they would take matters into their own hands. They'll rather do it themselves than to rely on someone else or a company or the government. And this not only goes to the products that they create, that will have an impact as well, but in how they communicate, what they believe in, like, again, how they're going to share information online, where they're going to get recommendations from. This consumer doesn't necessarily trust massive influencers. They don't necessarily trust the traditional media. So they tend to trust more people that they connect with, that they're their peers, people that are in the same group as them, and they will very much rely on their own personal lived experience, their personal judgment. And sometimes if they can't find the product, or they can't find the product from a brand that aligns with their values, they will try to create the product or their service themselves. So coming to our first strategy is to facilitate fact-checking. By now you understand this consumer doesn't trust anyone, so giving them tools that will fact check, that will give more information for them, that will allow for transparency, will be very important for them. So here we have two examples. The first is from a newsletter from Brazil. It's called The News. They're a political newsletter, and they have launched this unbiased thermometer. What it means is that the people that read that specific article can then vote if they found the article biased or unbiased, if they found it impartial, or if it wasn't impartial, was it more leaning towards the left, or was it leaning towards the right? So again, this is a filtered view, right? Because it's only people who are reading that newsletter who are voting. But since these consumers, they prefer to get information from peers and people that are similar to them, it makes a lot of sense for them. And secondly, we have Yuka, which is an app. I've seen several examples of this, but this app, essentially you can scan products, whether that's makeup or cosmetics or even food, and it will give you a breakdown of each ingredient. It will tell you if the ingredient it's good for you or not necessarily good for you. So it really gives more information for the consumer. It allows them to make their decisions with more transparency and more information. The second business strategy for this consumer is to support do-it-yourself innovation. Like I said, oftentimes they would take matters into their own hands. So brands, especially brands that produce physical products, need to know that sometimes they would prefer to do it themselves. Not only that, like I said, they don't necessarily trust media. So how can you make your consumer trust you? How can you connect with them? Micro-influencers are a huge part of it, but even the way, the place that they're getting their information sometimes changes. So I love this example. Viduca is a micro-influencer from São Paulo. She was becoming very known for recommending things to do in São Paulo. She has a very insider view of the night there, and she was becoming very known on TikTok. But one day, TikTok banned her account. I think it was because she talked too much about alcoholic beverages, so the algorithm banned her. So she did reinstate her TikTok, but when she did that, she also launched her own website. So she didn't have to depend on a third-party big tech company, and instead she had a lot more control of where her content was, who had access to it, when she wanted to post, when she didn't want to post, which content was delivered or not. So we're gonna see an increasing number of people, influencers, podcasters, people that are communicators really, trying to create their own website as to not depend on Meta or TikTok or etc. We also have this example very recent from Nike. So during Milan Design Week, which was a couple of weeks ago, they had the Nike Air Lab, where they allowed people and visitors to play with all of the parts, literally the parts, the machinery, all of the process for the Nike Air products. So they couldn't actually create products there, but it gives that view of how a product is created. It gives more transparency as well of what are all of the elements that compose a sneaker or whatever product it was. And then we have hack for good. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying everyone needs to become a hacker. And I know that when we talk about hacking, we immediately think of cyber attacks. But to hack something is actually to think of a creative solution, to an unexpected way of delivering something that it's improvised, that it's faster, it's simpler sometimes. So brands that, again, this consumer has a hacker mindset. They have this hacker creativity, or if they don't have it, they at least value it. So this isn't a brand example. However, this very, very young developer in Brazil has created a corruption detector app. So what that app does is it uses open source, available information to track political spending in the country. So if there's suspicious or something that is not aligning in a certain politician's spending, it will alert people so they can access that. And again, this is actually hacking. However, it's the mindset that I want to highlight here. And a more fun, less political example, we have the Burger King. They created the Hangover Whopper campaign. So it would use face recognition to recognize and identify your level of hangover. If you wanted to order a Burger King, the higher the hangover, the bigger the discount that you get for the Whopper. So again, it's about that creative solution and going the extra mile for a consumer in a way that they don't necessarily expect it from you. That brings us to our last cohort of the day, which is the Energizers. They're a very optimistic, very fun group, so we can end on a very positive note. It's one of our favorites at WGSN. So they embrace creativity. They look for joy as a solution to the polycrisis. So for those of you who are not familiar with the term, the polycrisis is very much the moment that we're living in, where we're facing multiple crises all of the time, everywhere. But they see a way to fight that. It's actually to feel joy. They're trying to escape it and feel good despite it all. So we're going from AI to KI, so kid intelligence. AI, artificial intelligence, is not going anywhere. This is not what I'm saying. It will continue to be increasingly important. However, this consumer looks at the way that a child's mind works as something increasingly valuable. So kids are curious, they are explorative, they're extremely creative, they use their imagination literally to create worlds in their minds. So adults are going to start embracing that more and more and valuing the way that kids think and do things more and more as well. So we're seeing the importance of play becoming increasingly important. In 2024, it was instated the International Day of Play is on June 11th. So it's something that is very new, but I think it offers a direct opportunity for brands to embrace that as a celebratory event. We can have seasonal collections, seasonal campaigns that celebrate the act of play. What we're seeing is that play is literally being put as a human right. Like I said, we're amongst the polycrisis, so having a sense of play and having the ability and the possibility of playing will become really important for people to de-stress and feel better and honestly live a better life. So we have 49% of global consumers saying that they're more likely to purchase from a brand that offers them a sense of joy. So this already is affecting how people spend and is increasingly important, especially for this consumer. So we have another concept emerging here, which is the feel appeal. So if you look back a very distant past, very, very long time ago, all a product had to do was work. It only needed to be functional. Then we moved on from that, the market has evolved, and then a product had to be aesthetically interesting. It had to be pretty as well as functional. Now, we're coming to a place where neither of those things are no longer enough, and now a product has to make you feel something, whether that's emotion or an actual physical feeling. So we're gonna see an increase in products that touch our emotions, that try to evoke an emotion out of us, as well as products that evoke a physical sense. So whether that's tactility, scent, whatever it is that we can touch and feel with our eyes, it will be very important. So 63% of consumers crave multisensory experiences. We're overstimulated. And because we're overstimulated, brands and businesses and experiences need to be even more stimulating in order for us to connect with them. Like I said, if you go to a museum nowadays, the museums that go viral, the exhibitions that go viral, they're the immersive exhibitions. They're the exhibitions that you're not only seeing the art, you're feeling it, you're hearing it, sometimes you're touching it, sometimes you're literally interacting with it or living, or the feeling that you're living inside of it. So this is very key for experiences, of course, but it's gonna be important to translate that into products as well. So that takes us to the first strategy for this group, which is to give adults a space in the kids' world. So if anyone here works with children or children's brands or kids wear, whatever it is, if you're targeting kids, it's time to embrace the adults as well. Or if you work with adults, if you work with grown-ups, look at the kids market to take inspiration and give space to the kid-adult consumer, as we call them, so the kid-adult consumer. So we have a couple of examples from this. Jellycat is a stuffed toy company from the UK, and they went viral with their latest store in China that had a Jellycat cafe. It didn't offer any pastries or actual coffee, but it offered Jellycats in the form of things that you would find at a cafe. So although it's very childlike, as you can see in the video, it went viral with adults. So adults are buying into this sort of thing. The adults are nostalgic in the sense that they crave the time that they were kids. They want to have that feeling of wonder and play, like I said. So it's very silly, which is our next strategy, is to embrace silliness. Apply silliness to your business strategy. When we talk about business, it sounds so serious, and it actually is serious. However, you can embrace a sense of play and be a little bit sillier with your products as well, because that will most likely evoke a sort of emotion from your consumers. So here we have two examples of ways to do that. They're both from packaging. Packaging is really important here. So the first is Vacation. Vacation is a sunscreen brand, and they have also gone viral for their packaging. They sell their product in a whipped cream can. So that in itself, it's unexpected. It creates an experience just from purchasing and trying to apply the product will already be different, which means it will already be memorable for the consumer. The other one is Desgosto. They are an apparel brand from Brazil, a youth brand, and they sell their products in the packaging it mimics packaging from things that you would find at a grocery store. So a cereal box or a soap box. Again, the product in itself doesn't necessarily align with that, but just the packaging being different, being memorable, making you want to keep it, will have the more connection with the consumer. And then we have this marketing campaign from Mami Wata. I'll play it. It's self-explanatory, but it really highlights how fun and interesting being silly can be.
15 million degrees Celsius without a trace of compassion. The unforgiving star can be fatal to one surface in particular, a bald one. Bald people are twice as likely to get skin cancer. So it's only fair that someone gives them a hand. Mami Wata is offering 2 sunscreens for the price of 1. Bald people can unlock the deal simply by scanning their faces on the website. They're bald faces. Bald faces. The system recognizes.
So this is a great example because it takes something that is actually very serious, which is skin cancer, but it plays with it. It makes fun of it, not fun of it, but it makes it into something fun. Sorry. English is also my second language, so forgive me. And lastly, we have to embrace emotioneering. I don't know if everyone here knows this term. Emotioneering, it's literally the combination of emotions with engineering. That's something that it's increasingly common for experience. So I was talking about museums. So a lot of museums now use emotioneering. Movies, even like movies, video games, all of that uses emotioneering, which is essentially engineering an experience that will evoke an emotion. So how can we bring that into products, into services as well, how we can evoke the same feeling that a video game, a movie, or a trip will have on consumers. So I Am Proud is a great example of that. It's a beauty company, they're a startup that uses neuroscience to create a feeling through scent. So their fragrances evoke feelings like confidence or calm, and they have found that Gen Z consumers especially resonate with that. A lot of Gen Z consumers already claim that they use different fragrances depending on their mood, but the idea here is that you can actually change how you feel and change your mood a little bit from the fragrance. So this is a new concept into product design, but it's already very common in experience design. So how can we borrow from that world and into the product design world? So this is the 6 key messages that I want to leave you guys with today. So the first is to understand who your consumer is and how they want to be spoken to. So you've realized that I was speaking that there are consumers who don't want to be reached that much. There are consumers who don't want to have their data exposed or used in a certain way, while other consumers, they're okay with scanning their faces to realize if you have a hangover or if you're bald. So it really depends on who your consumer is and how they want to be reached. Second, coexist with technology, but always maintain an offline strategy. A while ago, we would only talk about online, omnichannel, we talked a little bit about. However, now, of course, you have to continue to exist in the online space. I'm not saying go off the grid. However, maintain an offline strategy, maintain a way to connect with your consumer in real life. I think for us Latin Americans in general, we like the real life. We like the feeling of looking each other in the eye and touching each other. So this for our region is increasingly important. It's especially important. Then we have the number 3, which is go through your archives to revive fan favorites. Again, that doesn't necessarily have to mean your own archives, but look to the past in a way that will connect and resonate with your consumer. Then we have the idea to balance polarizing emotions and beliefs, so things can exist at the same time. I started the presentation talking about this. 5, design products that evoke a physical and an emotional response. If there's any fashion designer here, you probably know how texture has become very important over the past couple of years. It will continue to do so. That's a physical sensation, right? But it's already important. But if you can touch on the emotional response, that's even better. You'll connect even more with your consumer. And lastly, which I was just talking about, use play as a form of unity, of innovation. Look at play as a response for consumers who want to escape the day-to-day life, which not necessarily is as easy anymore, right? That is it for me today. I want to thank Soho House again. I want to thank you all for coming and giving me your time and your attention. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you very much. Have a great day. Gracias. Feel free to, let me just come here again. Yes. He's going to give you a microphone. 1 second. If anyone wants to speak in Spanish, I'll ask Maria to help me. I can understand most of it, but she can help me probably.
I try in English?
Yep.
So, first of all, thank you for your conference. This is something I've been looking forward to listen for a while. This is a concern that it's really important for me. I've been seeing some sort of exhaustion from social media and instant media.
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask you for a bit more insight on that topic and the relevance of social media, traditional social media, if we can call it that way, and mainly about this exhaustion from people.
I think, again, it depends on who your consumer is and what your brand is. We have examples from brands who have left social media entirely. So you have Bottega, for instance, who doesn't have any social media presence practically, and they haven't had it for a while. But they're Bottega, obviously, they're very known. They're a luxury brand. So, but it works for them. I wouldn't advise people, no, go off social media. I would say, try to find out what is the content that makes sense for your audience, whether that's your consumer or just someone consuming your content in itself. So for instance, a lot of people aren't resonating anymore from a creator point of view. They aren't resonating with get ready with me's anymore because it's just someone getting ready. People want some more information, I would say. But again, it depends. It depends. If your consumer is a very, very connected, always on consumer, they will continue to exist. So, but if you are already seeing and sensing social media exhaustion, I would say use social media now to create an offline community, to create an offline presence, because an offline presence is way harder actually than an online presence, right? You need a physical space sometimes, or a physical product even. But if you can now, because now is the rise of the social media exhaustion, but it already, like, it's still here. So how can you use it to try to foster this in real life connections and bring people closer to you, create like micro communities that you can connect in real life? Perhaps is one way to do it. Yep. Anyone else? Yeah? Oh, okay.
Okay. I will try in English. I wanted to thank you for your conference as well, and I have a personal question: is how No, no va a poder.
Puede hablar. Yo voy a intentar.
Lo que quiero decir es como el momento en el que estamos viviendo de las guerras en el mundo, y cómo no queremos, o personalmente no me quiero relacionar con empresas que apoyen el tema de la guerra, o con otras causas, por ejemplo, con no apoyar como el fast fashion y cómo se explotan algunas personas en países del sur global, cómo eso se traslada en estas tendencias que tú estás viendo, porque sé que no soy la única consumidora que tiene esas preocupaciones, y cómo, por ejemplo, hay estas aplicaciones que te identifican qué productos vienen, como la cadena de valor hacia atrás. Entonces quería ver si eso, o en qué tipo de consumidor lo ves.
It's definitely the third one. The third one is exactly how you're feeling, that I only want to buy, or as much as possible, I only want to buy from brands that have the same values that I do. I think right now, we see a lot of brands being really scared of positioning themselves because they're probably going to lose consumers. And it's true. Right now, the world is very polarized. So when you position yourselves politically, especially, you might lose consumers. But you have to be okay with that, especially if you are, if the causes are important to you, if you believe in them as a business, not on an individual level. You have to be okay with that, because when you position yourself, you're also going to gain the trust and the loyalty of consumers who align with you. I think we come from a world that we want to reach everyone and we want to sell to everyone. I don't think that's possible anymore, or it's very, very hard to do. So I would definitely say the third one, because they want transparency and they want brands that are aligned with what they believe in. And they're very ruthless in that. They will cut out anyone that doesn't align with them, or any business that doesn't align with them. And we're seeing a rise in things like in Europe, for instance, now there are product passports. So for the fashion industry, you can, very soon you'll be able to scan a fashion product and see where it came from. So that's a growing thing that we're going to see, the need and the valuing in the transparency of where the product comes from, what is the brand that aligns with it. So I would say if you have a business, position yourself in the way that feels true to you, and you find the consumers will resonate with that for sure. Okay? Yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for your presentation. Actually, you did give a pretty good insight regarding transparency. I work in a business regarding what you already mentioned, which are digital product passports. So we're kind of pioneers in Colombia.
Amazing.
So my question is regarding that, how can we deliver a message of transparency and trust, and specifically on this industry, on the textile industry, in order to deliver a message that we provide a product for brands to show their transparency towards eco-design, sustainability, like circular economy, how materials are made, how they're manufactured, and like the whole supply chain regarding.
First of all, amazing that your company does that. That sounds really interesting. I want to know more about it. Secondly, I would say we still have to teach consumers a little bit of all of the process, all of the supply chain, everything that it involves. Because when we talk about sustainability, now it's changing, but for a long time, all brands had to do was to claim it was sustainable, right? Or say, oh, I use upcycling. Okay, but where are you discarding your products? Like, what's happening with everything else in the process, right? Before and after. So people still need to be taught a lot. So I would say bringing awareness of all of the etapas, all of the stages in a product. It's a way to try to bring some awareness into it, and then the importance of something like that, like a digital a passport, a product passport, will become more evident, because a lot of consumers as well, they're not really concerned if where their product ends. Even if I am a consumer who sells my things in secondhand or buy from secondhand, now even secondhand is kind of problematic because it's creating a whole different industry, a parallel industry. So if I sell it on secondhand and then it eventually goes to landfill, I'm not really concerned because I don't know about it. So if you bring awareness and if you make it clear all of the stages in the process, I believe people will start to understand the importance of something like that. I think a lot of consumers want to buy more responsibly, they want to buy more sustainably, but they don't know how, or they think they're doing an okay job. So I think it needs to be more clear, everything that it involves. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Yeah. You and then usted. Oh, okay. Oh. Okay, we have time for one more. I will be here so we can we can speak off stage. I don't know.
Okay. So when you were talking about silliness, I was thinking about this new trend in Gen Z that is feeling cringe about some stuff and also feeling embarrassment.
Yeah.
So how can we decipher, or how can we tell where something could be cringe for some or silly for others? I think it's a kind of a fine line between those.
It is. It's a great question. And I think brands oftentimes try to be funny and they end up being cringe. But I think that happens especially when a brand tries to do something that isn't true to them. So we'll see a very random, invented, made up example, but like, let's think of a bank that is trying to talk in memes. It's gonna be like very cringy, very like not true to them. But if you have a product that's like Jellycat, which was not from the silly strategy, but still, it already is kind of silly. So it just embraces that kind of childish-like side of it, and then it makes sense. I might not be a Jellycat consumer. That's fine. They have their own consumer, which kind of talks. It aligns with what I told her as well. You have to speak to your own consumer. If it's cool for your consumer, if it's funny and silly and playful for your consumer, but it's cringe for someone else, so be it. But if you're trying to speak to Gen Z and then it's cringe to Gen Z, then it's a problem. But you have to, number one, have them in the room. Gen Zs we're talking about Gen Z, but they're grown-ups now. But if you have a room full of people in their 50s who are trying to sell to someone who is 20, you're more likely going to have a problem because you're not speaking the same language. But if you're involving those people, those consumers in the process in some sort of way, you're more likely going to resonate with them better. Okay? All right. That's it, unfortunately. But thank you so much for the questions and for the time. I appreciate it. Gracias.
Bogotá, eres tú.